In this video, we are going to discuss about open economy. This topic will be explained by Group 4. So, what is open economy? In order to learn its context, first, we need to know its basic concepts. Basically, open economy is a trade agreement between countries. In other words, international trade. So, what are the benefits of international trade? Trade allows people to produce what they produce best and to consume the great variety of goods and services produced around the world. International trade can raise living standards in all countries by allowing each country to specialize in producing those goods and services in which it has a comparative advantage. Economies have two particular variables, which are first is closed economy, and second is the one that we are going to discuss furthermore, and it is an open economy. A closed economy is one that does not interact with other economies in the world. There are no exports, no imports, and no capital flows. Meanwhile, an open economy is one that interacts freely with other economies around the world. An open economy interacts with other countries in two ways. First, it buys and sells goods and services in world product markets. Second, it buys and sells capital assets in world financial markets. And additional information regarding open economy. The US is a very large and open economy. It imports and exports huge quantities of goods and services. Over the past 4 decades, international trade and finance have become increasingly important. Overview. In this discussion, there will be 5 sections. First, the flow of goods consists of exports, imports, and net exports. Second, the flow of capital. Third, real and nominal exchange rates consists of real exchange rates and nominal exchange rates. Fourth, purchasing power parity consists of basic logic, implication, and limitation. The last is summary.
Okay, so I'm gonna explain about the flow of goods. The first one is export. Exports are domestically produced goods and services that are sold abroad. And then imports are foreign produced goods and services that are sold domestically. Net exports, or NX, are the value of a nation's exports minus the value of its imports. Net exports are also called trade balance. A trade deficit is a situation in which net exports, or NX, are negative. A trade surplus is a situation in which net exports are positive. And the last one is balanced trade. It is refers to when the net exports are zero. So, exports and imports are exactly equal. There are some factors that affect net exports. The first one is the taste of consumer for domestic and foreign goods. The second one, the price of goods at home and abroad. And the last one is the exchange rates at which people can use domestic currency to buy foreign currency. Next is the incomes of consumer at home and abroad, the cost of transporting goods from country to country, and then the policies of the government toward international trade.
And then I will explain about the flow of capital. First one is net foreign investment. It refers to the purchase of foreign assets by domestic residents minus the purchase of domestic assets by foreigners. For example, a US resident buys stock in the Toyota Corporation and a Mexican buys stock in the Ford Motor Corporation. When a US resident buys stock in Telmex, the Mexican phone company, the purchase raises US net foreign investment. And then, when a Japanese resident buys a bond issued by the US government, the purchase reduces the US net foreign investment. There are some variables that influence net foreign investment. The first one is the real interest rate being paid on foreign assets. The second, the real interest rates being paid on domestic assets. And the third is the perceived economic and political risk of holding assets abroad. And the last one is the government policies that affect foreign ownership of domestic assets. And the next is the equality of net exports and net foreign investment. Net exports or NX and net foreign investment or NFI are closely linked. For an economy as a whole, NX and NFI must balance each other so that NFI is equal to NX. This holds true because every transaction that affects one side must also affect the other side by the same amount. Net exports is a component of GDP. Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. And national saving is the income of the nation that is left after paying for current consumption and government purchases. Y minus C minus G is equal to I plus NX. National saving or S equals Y minus C minus G. So S is equals to I plus NX, or saving is equals to domestic investment plus foreign investment.
Real and nominal exchange rates. International transactions are influenced by international prices. The two most important international prices are the nominal exchange rate and the real exchange rate. The first one is nominal exchange rates. The nominal exchange rate is the rate at which a person can trade the currency of one country for the currency of another country. The nominal exchange rate is expressed in two ways. The first one is in units of foreign currency per $1 United States dollar, and the second one in unit of United States dollars per 1 unit of the foreign currency. For example, we can assume the exchange rate between the Japanese yen and US dollar is 80 yen to $1. 1 United States dollar trades for 80 yen, and 1 yen trades for 1 per 80, equals to 0.0125 of a dollar. And now we can learn about appreciation. What is appreciation? Appreciation is the increase in the value of a domestic currency as measured against the amount of foreign currency that can be exchanged. The effects of currency appreciation are export costs rise. For example, if the US dollar appreciates, the foreigners will find American goods more expensive because they have to spend more for those goods in US dollar. That means that with the higher price, the number of US goods being exported will likely drop. The second one are cheaper imports. If American goods become more expensive on the foreign market, foreign goods or imports will become cheaper in the US. That's meaning you can buy more goods imported from abroad. That translates to a benefit of lower price, leading to lower overall inflation. And the second one is currency depreciation. Depreciation is the decrease in the value of domestic currency as measured against the amount of foreign currency that can be exchanged. Usually, countries with weak economic fundamental, such as chronic current account deficit and high inflation rate, have currencies that are depreciating. If orderly and incremental currency depreciation enhance the export competitiveness of a nation and can boost its trade deficit over time. In the exchange rate market, the law of currency supply and demand applies, which causes the value of the currency to depreciate or appreciate. For the simple term, if a dollar buys more foreign currency, there is an appreciation of the dollar. And if it buys less, there is a depreciation of the dollar. Appreciation can cause the exchange rate of the domestic currency to rise, so that the price of domestic goods are relatively more expensive than those of foreign countries. And depreciation currency can cause the exchange rate of the domestic currency to fall, so that the price of domestic goods relative to foreign countries is cheap. Now, let's begin to the real exchange rate. The real exchange rate is the rate at which a person can trade the goods and services of one country for the goods and service of another country. The real exchange rate compares the prices of domestic goods and foreign goods in the domestic economy. You can see here for the example. If a case of German beer is twice as expensive as American beer, the real exchange rate is 1 per 2 cases of German beer per case of American beer. The real exchange rate depends on the nominal exchange rate and the price of goods in the two countries, measured in local currency. Real exchange rate equals to nominal exchange rate times domestic price divided by foreign price. So, the real exchange rate is a key determinant of how much a country exports and imports. A depreciation or fall in the US real exchange rate means that US goods have become cheaper relative to foreign goods. This encourages consumers both at home and abroad to buy more US goods and fewer goods from other countries. As a result, because of that, US exports rise and US imports fall, and both of these change raise US net exports. Conversely, an appreciation in the US real exchange rate means that US goods have become more expensive compared to foreign goods, so United States net exports will fall.
The purchasing power parity theory is the simplest and the most widely accepted theory explaining the variation of currency exchange rate. According to the purchasing power parity theory, a unit of any given currency should be able to buy the same quantity of goods in all countries. The theory of purchasing power parity is based on a principle called the law of one price. According to the law of one price, a good must sell for the same price in all locations. If the law of one price were not true, unexploited profit opportunities would exist. The process of taking advantage of difference in price in different markets is called arbitrage. If arbitrage occurs, eventually prices that differ in two markets will necessarily converge. According to the theory of purchasing power parity, a currency must have the same purchasing power in all countries, and exchange rate move to ensure that. If the purchasing power of the dollar is always the same at home and abroad, then the exchange rate cannot change. The nominal exchange rate between the currency of two countries must reflect the different price level in those countries. When the central bank prints large quantity of money, the money loses value both in terms of the goods and service it can buy, and in terms of the amount of other currency it can buy. Many goods are not easily traded or shipped from one country to another. Tradable goods are not always perfect substitutes when they are produced in different countries.
That is the last section in our discussion. So, in summary, net exports are the value of domestic goods and services sold abroad minus the value of foreign goods and services sold domestically. Net foreign investment is the acquisition of foreign assets by domestic residents minus the acquisition of domestic assets by foreigners. An economy's net foreign investment always equals its net exports. An economy's saving can be used to either finance investment at home or to buy assets abroad. The nominal exchange rate is the relative price of the currency of two countries. The real exchange rate is the relative price of the goods and services of two countries. When the nominal exchange rate changes so that each dollar buys more foreign currency, the dollar is said to appreciate or strengthen. When the nominal exchange rate changes so that each dollar buys less foreign currency, the dollar is said to depreciate or weaken. According to theory of purchasing power parity, a unit of currency should buy the same quantity of goods in all countries. The nominal exchange rate between the currencies of two countries should reflect the country's price levels in those countries.